let's jump back in with Leanne here now, and we're going to have a look here now at question 7, and I think we've got some graphics here with this one as well, don't we, Leanne? And we can delve further now, Leanne, into some of the assessment areas with B Corp. Can you please share some of the best practices for the worker and community assessment areas with the certification process?
Yeah, sure. So, Julie, if you could bring up the workers one, I will talk to that one first because it's sort of links to one of the earlier questions about challenges that social enterprises have. And the very first question there. So this is a sample of, if you're on the online platform doing your B Impact assessment, this is a sample of the type of questions that will come up that you need to be able to respond to. So the first one there that talks to, do you have a written employee handbook that workers can access? It doesn't look very difficult, just being able to tick a lot of boxes there, but sometimes the challenge is in putting all of that together. And you'll see it includes things like having policies around, or written documentation on what happens around pay and performance issues. What happens if you've got a grievance or some challenges within the business that require intervention? Have you got a statement around the hours of work and your expectations? And some of these are not as straightforward as they sound, because statement on work hours, we're now working with a globally mobile workforce. We're working with people that have flexibility and that are working across different time zones. You have different caring arrangements, which might mean that people are working very late at night or very early in the morning. So something as simple as a statement on work hours is not as easy as it used to be. And so to put together something like this, a written handbook or an employee handbook that documents all of your practices as a pending B Corp or as an organisation that wants to do good, it does require a little bit of work. As I mentioned before, it's not a tick and flick exercise. It's sitting back and looking at your organisation and say, how are we going to approach this? What is the best practice that we will set up now that will equip our business for today, but also equip it for the future? What work hours and what are our expectations of what our team might need to do when we're a team of 30 people, when we're spread across multiple locations, when we're based out in regional areas and we don't get to see each other very often? How does that impact our work areas and our place of work? So that's just one example, but I hope it demonstrates the fact that even some of the policies and practices are not as straightforward as they sound. And it's a great opportunity for pending B Corps to think about that and to make sure that they've got things in place that will benefit the people in their team and benefit the business. If we just flick across to the other side of that slide, sorry, Julia, just back up to the workers one, the viewers to flick their eyes across to the right-hand side of the slide around percentage of company that's owned by non-executives. So some of the best practices in the B Corp space involve moving to a point where your workers have some ownership of the business, so that it's not just all owned by founders and workers. At some point in time, and Patagonia is a really good example of that. They've set up some cooperative systems where their employees can take on ownership of the business. Harder to do when you're a very, very small business, but again, something to start thinking about as you embark on that journey. How might you set it up so that it becomes more of a cooperative organisation down the track, or move to a complete not-for-profit model? It's all things that provoke you as you go through the assessment to think about the future business, not just your current business. Thanks, Julia. We can.
Excellent. And did you want me to go to this next slide, the community page here as well?
Yes, please. Perfect.
Great.
So another area, there's 4 key areas of assessment that aspiring B Corps will go through. So it's workers, governance, community, environment, and also they're all operational areas. and also the overall impact business model that your organisation has. So one of the focus areas is community, and just a couple of the questions, again, that might come up that demonstrate the ways that you can show best practice. I've got up on the screen there. So volunteer service per capita. What's the percentage of per capita volunteer community service or pro bono time donated in the reporting period? So you'll see that that's a scale. It's a bit of a sliding scale, and points are achieved based on the higher levels that you have on these scales. So if you were an organisation where your employees were donating, where you were donating more than 5% of your time in any of those areas, volunteering, community service or pro bono, that would give you higher points than if you weren't doing any. So again, doesn't seem that difficult, but the challenge with this one is in being able to document it. So if you're starting on the journey, start thinking about this stuff early. How are you capturing that time at the moment? Are you recording when somebody does some volunteering? How are you equating the pro bono time that you're providing? Are you capturing that? Because part of the validation and audit process will be an expectation that you're able to show that. So start thinking about that one early. The other one that I love is this supplier diversity policy. And B Corp has a lot of focus on gender equality, diversity and inclusion as part of their community and worker practices. So I love that they do focus on having policies that give preferences to suppliers from underrepresented populations, including women. And B Corps and aspiring B Corps giving preference to those organisations that can support the movement to greater gender equality. But again, saying yes or no to this is only as good as how you're able to demonstrate that. So firstly ask yourself, do you know how many suppliers you've got that are owned by women or underrepresented population? Chances are not. If you write out a list of all of your suppliers, you may not know very much about any of them. So it's an opportunity to get to know them a little bit more deeply as organisations, and make sure that you are aligning yourself to suppliers that have share similar values or are doing the right thing in terms of Modern Slavery Act, which is something that's just come in recently. Thanks, Julia.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Leanne. And you can see, just if you're new to B Corp, can't you? You can just see straight away that being able to think about, just with women-owned and women-led businesses, it's such an easy way for us within our businesses to be, we use this line of businesses being a force for good, but just being able to say that, as a business owner, I actually consciously and intentionally know my suppliers and the impact that I can create by how I engage with my suppliers. And that's something that, I think from my perspective, it's just so unique about the B Corp certification, that it gets people into that state of awareness and consciousness and conscious decisions around what they do and don't do with their business. So thank you for sharing those and going into those a bit deeper with us today. That is so incredibly helpful. Thank you.